before I come to your professional credentials, I just wanted the audience to know that you are an actor, you are a writer, you've written a book as well, and you're a singer. And I'll come to your singing capabilities a little later when I talk through your Kottayam stint as well. I think when it comes to your professional credentials, you started off being a doctor, then moved into civil services. Before becoming the mission director for MGNREGA, you were in Kottayam and then briefly moved to Trivandrum, and then finally took over the self-help groups. And interestingly, it was during your Kottayam stint that your song actually went viral, and the song for the election commission to urge people to go and vote. So thank you so much once again for taking time out during this busy schedule. And now over to you, Divya.
Thank you so much, Mayur, and thank you all participants for joining in this discussion. Let me start off where Mayur left. Currently, I am heading the MGNREGA, which is Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme in Kerala, and also holding some additional charge in Food and Civil Supplies Department. So when we were discussing as to what do you think is the most important factor that keeps driving us during the time of crisis, in the light of the work that I have been exposed to during various disasters that has struck the coast of Kerala over the last 4 or 5 years, and that's exactly the time when I have been in service as well. I belong to the 2014 batch of the Indian Administrative Service, and prior to that, I have been in the medical field, in the health sector, in Christian Medical College, Vellore. So in the light of these experiences, what is it that actually keeps us driving through a crisis and helps us emerge out of it unscathed? This is one question that's vexed me over the past decade, probably. And there's one answer which shines through everything else in my eyes. Is it good policy making? Is it good governance? Is it flawless implementation? Is it the cooperation of people? Is it technology? Is it preparedness? A whole lot of factors, a whole host of factors keeps bombarding us during these times of crisis. Not to lessen the importance of any of this, there is one thing which I feel is crucial for emerging out of any crisis: empathy. And that's something which I have learned from my experiences over these years. We in Kerala stand today on the verge of achieving a solace in the midst of this COVID pandemic. Now, the most important driving force behind this, if we have been able to contain, if we have been able to successfully come out of one disaster after another over the last 5 years, I would say empathy is the crucial factor. Now, let me tell you how I arrived at this. Much before the impact and research of science and public health reached this part of the world, right in the 19th century, we have had social reformers like Sri Narayana Guru, whose life presents to you an array of interesting experiences, each one presenting you a gem of wisdom to savor upon. Let me narrate one of that to you, which has stayed close to me. As a child, when Sri Narayana Guru, then known as Nanu, contracted severe illness, which was later figured out to be smallpox. When he contracted the illness, when he came down with severe fever, instead of going to town with it, what he did was to quietly move into a Durga Mandir in the nearby jungle, wherein he stayed alone and isolated himself from the rest of the society for 18 days, surviving on the fruits and the water that the forest provided him with. This was not based on any scientific research at that point of time. Nanu, as a youngster, based on his instinct and based on his sense, which prevailed at that point of time, did what we today proudly call as social isolation and social distancing. So this is the legacy and the foundation that we stand upon. And after 18 days, when he came back to his family, who were anxiously looking out for him, when they embraced him and asked him, "Why did you go away? We would have taken care of you." The answer that he gave was exactly this: "I knew that this was a disease, if exposed to others, might spread and create havoc amongst others. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to protect my family. I wanted to protect my friends. I wanted to protect the people around me from this illness." This is the empathy that we are talking about. And it's exactly this which is helping us in preventing this contagion from taking over us and defeating us. This is a crucial time when the whole of humanity has started to learn that it's not all about I, me, myself. It is about the fact that my family needs to be healthy, my friends need to be healthy, and every single person whom I encounter needs to be healthy. It's your good health that's going to translate into my good health. The sense of interdependence and the sense of cooperation that stems from empathy is what is definitely going to see us through this COVID pandemic crisis, undoubtedly. Now let me come to my work zone. I've had the amazing opportunity to work for the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Scheme. The scheme that's named after the embodiment of empathy, Mahatma Gandhi. All of us know the story of why Gandhiji switched over from the elaborate attire of a barrister and the traditional Indian Gujarati attire to a simple loincloth for the rest of his life. The answer is, once again, empathy. The story goes that he was traveling across the country, and particularly when he reached South India, he met with a lot of farmers who were working tirelessly in the field, just wearing a loincloth, struggling to meet both their rents and feed a family. Empathizing with them, he decided that this is going to be my attire too, and launched the Khadi revolution sooner than later. Now, let me not go into history too much. The scheme, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme as such, has been subject to a lot of praise and criticism, a lot of bouquets and brickbats. Whatever be the criticisms and the flaws, I can vouch for one thing from my experience, that this is one scheme that definitely stands up tall and wide in times of disaster. In 2018, when the great floods ravaged the state of Kerala, we were fervently looking out for livelihood rejuvenation in the state. And Mahatma Gandhi NREGS definitely came in handy. And I say this with pride, that after August 16, 2018, in that financial year of 2018-19, we could ensure that over 10 lakh families in the state were catered to, were beneficiaries to this scheme. And of them, over 4 lakh people joined after the floods. And close to 1 lakh, over 80,000 new job cards were given at that point of time. Now, to cut the long story short, this basically translates into over 2,000 crore rupees disbursed as wages into the bank accounts through a direct benefit transfer mechanism of these individuals in the state. And this definitely is not just about economy. This is also about empathy. Empathy in the sense that this is not free money that's being distributed to people. This is in no way patronizing anybody. On the contrary, this is a process of empowerment that is being done through the scheme. And in the last 1 year, we have been able to achieve a material percentage of expenditure of over 25%, which translates into rural infrastructure and asset building across the state. So in the time when the economy goes in for a slump, in the time when disasters overrule our desires and our market's free forces, when we decide to ensure that the poorest of the poor and the most deserving amongst us shall not fall victim to the economy's slump and depression, that is when the role of the employment guarantee scheme comes in. And in the current scenario, in the COVID pandemic, in the state of Kerala, advisories were already issued in March, much before the lockdown had come into state, had come into being. And following that, on the 25th of March, we had to shut down all the activities under Mahatma Gandhi NREGS owing to the national shutdown. And after a month, we could restart the works again. And slowly but steadily, we have been picking up pace. And as we speak today, we have 2 lakh people who are working out there in the fields under the scheme. And let me tell you, out of these 2 lakhs, around 1 3/4 lakh, which is 88% of the total workforce that we have, are women. Now, this is the fact that makes it even more special to me, because this is a scheme that's been enabling and empowering women across the state, which translates into empowerment of families and empowerment of children across the state. Now, this is not a one-time phenomenon. This has been there in the state of Kerala ever since the inception of Mahatma Gandhi NREGs. In the last financial year, when we had generated over 8 crore person days, out of the total 8 crore person days, over 7 crore person days were generated by women beneficiaries. The other enabling factor of the scheme is the fact that it caters specifically to the tribal population in the state as well. We have nearly 90% of the tribal families in the state having enrolled into the scheme and who are catered to specifically under the scheme as well. And the state of Kerala, in addition to the 100 days of guaranteed employment, which is given under the scheme by law, the state of Kerala gives an additional 100 days too to the tribal families under a scheme called Tribal Plus, so that they can hit the 200-day mark as well. And several families, as we are speaking now, around 20,000 families across the state are beneficiaries of this scheme as well. So I can keep on going endlessly about the scheme, but the fact of the matter, in relevance to a crisis situation and a disaster situation, is that employment guarantee is one of the crucial things in management of a disaster, whether it be natural disaster, whether it be a public health disaster, whether it be an economic emergency. This is definitely one way to boost not just our economy, but to empower our people as well. Let me give you one small example of how empowered our women who are beneficiaries of Mahatma Gandhi NREGS feel. On the 18th of March, 2020, our team decided to do a field visit in order to demonstrate how to do proper hand washing, how to maintain social distancing, and how to use hand gloves and masks when they come to the work site. So we chose a tribal hamlet in one of the rural areas here. And we were greeted by warm smiles of a lot of elderly women who are again our beneficiaries under the scheme. When we greeted them with our Break the Chain campaign as hosted by the state government to break the chain of coronavirus, When we greeted them, I was taken by surprise that they almost knew everything about the pandemic. Now, that is a level of awareness that we are talking about because of strengthening of the Panchayati Raj institutions across the state of Kerala. And I'm certain that I wouldn't have to tell you more about this because the doyen, the father of Panchayati Raj institutions development in Kerala, Vijayanand sir, has already addressed a group of you through the same fora prior to this. But my experience, as I narrate to you, is this, that the impact of the strengthening of PRIs is very much visible in the success of Mahatma Gandhi NREGS program as well. So when I went and demonstrated how to do the 20 seconds hand washing using a soap or a hand wash to them, the response that I received was more than overwhelming. They were quick to grasp the necessity and the technique, and more importantly, even shared their concepts and their understanding of this whole pandemic scenario, and promised me that they would go back to their homes and teach their children and grandchildren the correct hand washing technique. Now, it is this sense of intertransfer of skills, of information, the innate need and feeling and the necessity to actually protect somebody else as well, stemming from the deep-rooted empathy that all of us have in common. That is what is crucial to success of controlling any pandemic, of overcoming any disaster. They also agreed to be the eyes and ears of the society to us, to ensure that they'll look around if anybody in their neighborhood or anyone whom they know is suffering from a COVID-like illness, has got any symptoms, is there any history of foreign travel? So we gave them the crucial questions. We threw the crucial questions at them. So that became an informal sense of surveillance as well. Needless to say that there is a team at the ward level in the Panchayati Raj institutions that actually conducts the surveillance. But more importantly, we had this team of warm, sprightly women who mostly comprise the beneficiaries of Mahatma Gandhi and NREGS teams, who come to the work site every single day, who share information amongst themselves, who share information with the local officials and the local people's representatives, being the eyes and ears of the COVID situation in the state of Kerala as well. Now, this collective effort and the collaboration of various people from various walks of life coming in for a singular cause to protect not just myself, but to protect each and every one of us. That is the core of our strategy in Kerala, is what I learned. Though I don't think we expressly state this on any document, on any government document, but from my exposure and experience, this is what I have learned. Let me give you another example for this. As I said, I have an additional charge in Food and Civil Supplies Department also right now, wherein we are distributing free ration food grains to everybody, literally everybody in the state, to ensure that nobody goes to sleep hungry on any single day during this COVID pandemic. To ensure this, all the ration card holders, we have 87.29 lakh families who are ration card holders in the state. All the ration card holders and people who do not have ration cards can collect their free ration from the 14,000 odd ration shops across the state. And apart from this, since we are also part of the One Nation, One Card scheme, we have people across the country actually collecting free ration as well, to ensure that food grains are not scarce during this period. Because good health ultimately rests upon a fair share of wholesome nutrition as well. Now you would ask, is ration and food grains alone enough to ensure wholesome nutrition? No, definitely it's not. So that's why we came up with the distribution of free food item kits to all the families in the state. Now this is a whopping number of 87 lakh food item kits that we are talking about, and each kit contains 17 essential items, right from atta and suji to turmeric powder and chili powder. And why not? We have also included a bathing soap and a washing soap. To ensure that the fat, protein, carbohydrate proportion is right, we have oil to pulses to grains, and to ensure hygiene, the soap as well. So the 17 item kit is being prepared by the Supply Co, which is a civil supplies company. It's a state-owned company in the state. The Supply Co has procured all the materials essential for this in a span of 20 days to make 87 lakh kits, of which, as I'm talking to you now, we have already distributed over 35 lakh kits to the most deserving of the people, the yellow and the pink card holders, who are the Antyodaya Anna Yojana card holders and the priority households in the state of Kerala. The rest of the process would be completed by the end of this month. Now, you might be wondering, is it such a Herculean task? Yes. Now, how did we manage to do this? And how are we doing this? As I said, again, the winning factor, the winning edge is also given by empathy. How? We have around 1,300 kit-making centers across the state, in which more than 15,000 volunteers have come in from various walks of life, who are spending days and nights in the kit-making center, trying to ensure that these kits are made on time and they reach the right place on the right day. Apart from the governmental staff, apart from members of the self-help group, the women who work for Kudumbashree in Kerala, we have volunteers who have registered themselves on a portal, which is called Sanatham, that's run by the state government. Now these people have come in because they feel for the other. They feel for humanity. And they empathize with each other and ensure that the work goes as per plan. There is one more example of empathy in this whole scheme of things, which is that you might wonder, can't people actually afford to buy food items as long as we keep the market afloat, as long as we keep the wholesale stocks afloat? Yes, we thought about it, and that's why we started a Donate My Kit campaign, wherein people who can afford to buy these things from the free market, if they don't need the kit themselves, they can always donate it back to the government and ensure that this money would go in for an activity which reaches the poorest of the poor and the more deserving ones. There are welfare institutions across the state which, though we're receiving grants and probably contributions from various people, heavily relied upon public contribution as well. We know that very often when there is a birthday that's being celebrated, when there is a marriage that's being conducted, we decide to set apart a share of our celebration to an old age home or a children's home or a care home. Now, all these sources of contributions to these welfare institutions came to a halt when the lockdown was declared. Now, this was realized way ahead, and we ensured that we provided free ration to all these welfare homes across the state. Over 125 metric tons of rice has been distributed to these welfare homes as well. Now, these are the various kind of activities that has been done by the government in complete cooperation with the people of Kerala. Now, right from Mahatma Gandhi NREGS to the distribution of food kits, what is striking to me is that the way in which people come forth to work for the benefit of others, to share their resources with others, to help others, to protect the people around them, to protect everybody in the state and the country. It is that spirit of unison that actually ensures that we get over this crisis period successfully. And it's that innate empathy within each one of us that we need to cultivate during this period of disaster as a lesson for humanity as we move forward. The more and more we rely upon technology, our world gets shrunken into that little screen of mobile phone or the little screen of the computer placed in front of us. I'm all for technology since we ourselves now are corresponding and communicating through the advancements of technology. But we need to ensure that when we use technology, our minds also should not shrink along with the size of our screens. To see that the empathy which is deep-rooted within us is cultivated and the use of technology is intertwined with empathy and compassion for the human beings around us, for the nature around us. As long as we can ensure that this happens, any other flaw, any other wrongdoing can be corrected in course of time. And we shall overcome any disaster, any state of emergency together. So thank you so much for this opportunity. I don't know if I overshot my time. Probably we can talk about once the questions are thrown at me. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Very interesting. It's good to know that more than policies, more than process, more than technology, what we require to overcome crisis is empathy, like you rightly said. What I'll urge the audience is to actually use our Twitter handle to post any questions. We'll take it from there. But I have a couple of questions, Divya, that I'll shoot right now. And again, taking from your talk, where you spoke about empathy, we heard about how Kerala has dealt with, not just the migrant laborers, but even the tourists as well. And even, across the world, a lot of other countries have been lauded in the way, they've sort of, approached this crisis with empathy. Do you think, going forward, this will become one of the key hallmarks, not just in terms of, dealing with crisis, but even in terms of economic revival? Because, going by, some of the anecdotes, would people show more faith of coming back to Kerala quickly, given the way the state has dealt with people? Even the tourists, for example, will they be more confident of coming back and therefore revive the economy? So what are your thoughts on that, not just during the crisis, but after the crisis as well?
Yes, definitely. Post-lockdown as well as the post-COVID era, as we could probably term it, this is definitely going to be the fundamental feature of the state of Kerala, is what I think. And as we all know, there was this gentleman from Italy who had come to Kerala, who had contracted, who was a COVID positive patient and who was treated extremely well. And he ensured that he came on media and thanked the government as well as the people of Kerala for taking care of him well. So there are instances like that, which are not just lone instances. There is a general consensus amongst most people that the initiatives have been rooted in empathy. You spoke about tourists and migrant laborers. For a fact, we don't even want to call them as migrant laborers. The government of Kerala had decided to call them as guest workers. And, from the age-old adage and the tradition of Atithi Devo Bhava, we would like to treat them as our guests and ensure that they are being well taken care of in the labor camps as well as in their dwellings wherever they were. And as a matter of fact, I can tell you that we have actually taken care of their food and health needs very specifically based on everyday data collection and reporting. And if I can tell you the figures we've given up to date, we have given over 1,000 metric tons of rice and over 3 lakh kilograms of atta to the migrant laborers, to our guest workers here in the state of Kerala. And we have been, trying our best to ensure that nobody, none of them are left uncared for. I also have to tell you that, though I come from these two departments, it's actually the district administrations that play the vital role in this whole disaster controlling process, in this disaster management process. And it is through them that all the departments across the state actually implement their policies and do the activities as well. So, I think post-disaster or also this culture is going to stay on. And that's why actually I started off from the 19th century of Sri Narayana Guru's legacy. And this is something that runs through the people of Kerala. And these are the legends and these are the stories that we thrive upon and we learn from. So it's on the giants, it's on the shoulders of these giants that we stand upon. And definitely this is going to be a great boost for Kerala, as well as the people of Kerala. And those who want to come back to Kerala are most welcome here, and we can ensure you that you will be well taken care of. And this spell of disaster itself shall turn out to be a confidence booster for everybody else, is what we are thinking. But definitely, it's not as if we have won over this crisis as yet. We are still working through the crisis period, and we have to ensure that there is nothing that goes amiss in this whole process as we fight together.
Right. Thank you so much, Divya. I mean, before I move to audience for questions, moving to the other essential, which is employment. Kerala has been running the urban employment program for a while now, and more states seems to they've started talking about this. They want to adopt this. Going forward, how do you see this play out? What's been your learning? I mean, in terms of the differences between urban and rural employment programs, and also do you then see that? I mean. The government's intervention becoming more and more stronger when it comes to providing employment, or will the market eventually take over and sort of provide for the employment?
Okay, Mayur, so there are two large questions in your seemingly one question. One is about the urban employment status. Yes, Kerala has started the Ayyankali Employment Guarantee Scheme on the models of the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Scheme, but in a much smaller scale, I'll have to admit, because the requirement and the nature of employment that the urban setting provides is very different from the nature of employment that the rural setting provides. And one major factor which actually pulls down Mahatma Gandhi NREGS scheme itself in Kerala is the fact that the wage rate is much lesser than the market wage rate for an equivalent labor in the state of Kerala. It's almost 1/4 or 1/3. At the most, it's 1/3. We have a 291 rupees now per day, whereas the market rate, the open market rate in Kerala for agricultural labor is around 450. But any other labor, for skilled labor and any other labor in the urban setting, comes to even 700 or 800 rupees per day. So that is one factor which keeps pulling us down in the state of Kerala. So I highlighted the positive aspects of it. I am certain that all of you who are listening to this are also aware of the criticisms or the negative or the disadvantages of a scheme like this as well. So now, based on that, when we come to the urban setting, it is difficult to actually hold on to an employment guarantee scheme at such low wage rates. So once the wage rates increase, the allocation towards the program also has to increase accordingly. And then the question of whether the government should actually hold on to an employment guarantee scheme by tweaking the market forces and tweaking the labor and wage rate arises. Now, that is probably one of the reasons why the urban employment guarantee scheme has not been as widely utilized as the rural employment guarantee scheme either. So in my experience and in my learning, the employment guarantee scheme is definitely not in contradiction to the market forces or the market economy. It has to be something which has to supplement the market economy. Now, as long as we can hold on to it like that, as long as we can implement it like that, in that fashion, I think it's a huge success. But the moment we realize that the employment guarantee scheme, whether it be rural or urban, it is distorting the market forces heavily, so that the market forces are actually getting skewed onto one side, it might be a good time to revisit the models of the employment guarantee scheme. Now, I would definitely say an employment guarantee scheme is not a free service scheme. When I'm talking about 25% asset creation of the entire expenditure, we are talking about rural infrastructure, which is growing. And we are talking about local needs being fulfilled. Now, a market may not and cannot be relied upon for the needs of the last person or the farthest person from the center. Now, it's in these areas that an employment guarantee scheme, which is rooted in both empathy as well as empowerment, comes into play. And for that very reason, over the last 10 years that Kerala has implemented Mahatma Gandhi NREGS, it has definitely seen a positive stroke of employment and rural infrastructure development more than anything else.
Right. Thank you so much, Divya. What I'll do quickly is I'll start taking questions from the audience. We have few questions which have come in. One is from Tarun. Tarun actually talks about, given the economic impact, now more and more people would sort of want to access MGNREGA. What is the state doing in trying to ensure that there are fewer access barriers and more people can sort of access it? Given that, some of the other states are also facing this challenge. So any best practices around how do you lower access barriers so that more and more people can access a provision like this?
Okay, so access to the scheme and awareness, I think, is very crucial for the success of any scheme. And Mahatma Gandhi NREGS is not out of that bounds. So one thing we ensure is that, as I initially mentioned during the course of my lecture, strengthening of the Panchayat Raj institutions, I think, is key to accessibility of various schemes that are implemented through them. As long as we have people's representatives in the local self-governing bodies who take interest in ensuring the well-being of their voters, of their constituencies, things become very easy for us. But having said that, it is not completely upon them. It is definitely upon the officials in the local self-governing bodies who have to see that every deserving person in their panchayat, in their local self-governing body, is awarded the job card and is awarded work within the stipulated time as per the Act. Now, the more people see that their queries and their needs are being responded to by word of mouth itself, there is a lot of campaigning and a lot of awareness that takes place. As I mentioned to you about the hand washing experience, the break the chain experience that I had. When they are impressed by the kind of work that their neighbors do, that their friends do, that people whom they interact with every day do, they bring along the rest of them also. So first one, I would say Panchayati Raj institutions, strengthen them. That is the fundamental point for creating awareness and increasing accessibility for Mahatma Gandhi NREGS. Second, ensure that every person who comes to you, who approaches you in need, is being catered to within the stipulated time limit itself, and a good experience translates into 1,000 words to 1,00,000 people. That's what we have learned from our experience. So these are the two major points. Now, a few initiatives we have taken during this COVID pandemic scenario in order to ensure that people actually come into this, more than at any other point of time, but by ensuring the safety protocols relating to COVID pandemic. So one of those initiatives is that we have obviously started the Break the Chain campaign, and we are trying to spread it across the state through various sources, through various media, as well as by word of mouth. Secondly, what we have done is to ensure that we are now cooperating with the Postal Department, with the India Post and Payments Bank, to see that the wages which are to be disbursed to the beneficiaries of Mahatma Gandhi NREGS, as I said, it is disbursed through the bank accounts as direct benefit transfer. Now, during this time of lockdown and the COVID pandemic, it may not be a wise idea for people to actually go and queue up at their banks in order to collect or draw their wages. So we have collaborated with the India Post and Payments Bank to ensure that we have Aadhaar-based e-payments, which happens at the doorstep of each beneficiary. So when somebody sees, my neighbor is getting wages at their doorstep, there is a curiosity that comes up invariably, and people get motivated by mechanisms like this in order to join and benefit from the scheme as well. So, this is, these are a couple of things which I can tell you in order to.
Right. Thank you so much, Divya. One more question. This is from Amber, and he's from Gorakhpur. He talks about vast majority of India is still under the informal sector. So how has Kerala done differently, or what has Kerala done differently about informal sector, and how do you ensure that the welfare provisions or enough measures are taken for the informal sector?
Okay. Yes. Now, again, informal sector, the large majority, as you said, the large majority of our employable people do fall under informal sector even today. And Kerala is not an exception to that. However, I think Mahatma Gandhi NREGS itself is a scheme that organizes the largest labor force in the country who otherwise belonged to the informal sector. So that's another huge advantage of Mahatma Gandhi NREGS itself, that technically we are bringing in the people in the informal sector, the labor force that was spread across the informal sector. We are bringing in under one roof, under one umbrella of Mahatma Gandhi NREGS itself. So we are talking about something like 20 lakh individuals across the state who otherwise belong to the informal sector. Now we know they all have a bank account, they are Aadhaar linked. Any benefits that we want to give them, this is probably the easiest mechanism, easiest route in order to give them as well. So this itself is a huge positive step, I would say. So this is obviously applicable to all states across the country. The second thing that Kerala has done, especially with regard to women, is the strengthening of the self-help groups across the state of Kerala. As I mentioned in my talk, Kudumbashree has had a huge influence on the women folk and the families across Kerala. So we have crores of women literally that are into Kudumbashree, into microfinance, enterprises, and various livelihood activities that are generated from the self-help groups in Kerala. So these are two major factors. Now, apart from that, in the informal sector or the unorganized sector, we do have a platform called Awas, wherein all the guest workers or the migrant laborers in the state are actually catered to, where we have a database of all of them, and we ensure, so in times of crisis like this, when you have to actually dole out benefits to people. These kind of, data collection or initiatives actually helps us ensure that nobody is missed out in this whole process. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Divya. I mean, one more question with this is related to what you said previously about wages being doorstep, delivered doorstep, and you also spoke about how 90 lakh ration kits are being delivered right now. Going forward, do you see this as a feature of the governance where more and more let's say provisions will be delivered doorsteps? Some of the states have started experimenting this, like Delhi, which is a small city state. But do you see that happening with Kerala and other states as well as we move forward?
So you're talking about the logistical chain, Mayur?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So if I don't know if I had miscommunicated it, but as of now, we are not doing doorstep delivery of the food kits. But yes, the Aadhaar-based e-payments definitely is to avoid the travel to the bank, or to ensure that there is absolutely no risk for our beneficiaries as long as collection or withdrawal of their wages is concerned. So we are in the initial steps of that. It's been started out, it's been rolled out in a few districts as of now. And as far as the food kits go, people do have to go to the ration shop as of now and collect their food kits, but we are delivering it to those people who cannot come out for any reason. For those people under quarantine, under isolation, the kits have already been delivered to them, to these institutions, as we told you, and to people who are senior citizens, who are under palliative care treatment, etc. Those who cannot actually step out of their homes during this time, we are doing door delivery definitely. And yes, logistics, a robust logistics chain is definitely the way to go. And in order to boost the economy as well, one needs to ensure that local businesses start thriving. There is self-reliance for at least a few food grains or food items within the state itself. And when we ensure that these two actually are taken care of, the next step will be in delivery. The forward linkage will be in the delivery of these products, whether it be products of local enterprises, whether it be local agricultural products. The forward linkage in the market becomes extremely crucial. And the last mile delivery is definitely by ensuring a robust logistical chain. And I think Kerala as a state is extremely comfortable in utilizing the services of various agencies which ensure doorstep delivery, right from Amazon to Flipkart to Zomato to Uber. A whole host of agencies are, in very good, are in Kerala, and the people have been utilizing their services very well. So definitely, I think a logistics chain is welcome in Kerala, and that is the way forward. And a robust plan needs to be in place for that primarily. So I think post-disaster, or even this can be used as an opportunity for that, for developing that as well.
Right. So we have a question from Meenu, who's based out of Kerala. Her question is, given that Kerala had actually gone through 2 floods recently, and then now this, what is the plan for economic recovery, given the series of disasters or crises that it has gone through?
Yeah, thanks, Meenu, for the question.
It's a very generic question, yeah, but I mean, just...
I'm, authorized to answer that question, being an employee, being a civil servant in the government of Kerala, but I can just share my personal thoughts on it. This by no means is the plan that the government has in mind, probably. But as it's a continuation to my previous question, my previous answer itself. So when the economy is in slump, when the economy is on a decline, when we talk about revival, the first thing that you want is employment, right? So definitely we have the Mahatma Gandhi NREGS right in front of you, which is going to bring money to your doorsteps and ensure that the liquidity crunch at the rural level, at the grassroots level is, we can tide over it to a certain extent. So for example, now when we are going through this COVID crisis, in the month of April, we had a wage release of the previous 2 months, which were due actually, of February and March, which were due, wherein 424 crore rupees could be actually pumped into our economy, directly into the hands of the beneficiaries of Mahatma Gandhi NREGS as their wages. Now, this process shall continue as long as we can and as long as the laws permit us. So this definitely is one sure shot, reliable method to tide over an economic crisis at the micro level, at the grassroots in the rural sector. Now, second, now the government of Kerala, the Honorable Chief Minister, has announced a plan for agricultural revival in the state in order to ensure that the food security in the state happens at a local level as well by launching a program called Subhiksha Kerala, wherein fruits and vegetables and whatever can be homegrown has to be encouraged, and all the fallow land within the state has to be reinstated, has to be reinducted into agriculture as well. So that's one way of ensuring a part of our food security as well. And the third thing, as I mentioned in the answer to the logistics question that Mayur had asked, to ensure that the local businesses thrive. I think that's another sure shot method to see that the economy doesn't go into a slum more than what it is in already. As long as we can see that local businesses are thriving and it is supporting livelihood and enterprise within the state and within the country, these are the small steps that one can take in order to see that we are not on a decline. So in my eyes, these three things are definitely something which is doable. I'm not talking about the grand plans and the dreams that one may have, since that needs to be done at a much higher level. I'm talking about these small things, which will definitely help us tide over this crisis and make sure that we have not gone beyond redemption. And as far as Kerala goes, we have heavily relied upon the service sector and the hospitality sector. And as we were talking about the boost of confidence and faith in the state of Kerala, which will hopefully continue even after we tide over this crisis. Now that will definitely give us an edge over in flourishing our hospitality sector, our tourism sector, as well as our service sector. Now tourism, including medical tourism, we have started talking about now. And as far as our service sector goes, through the advancement of technology and adoption, and early adoption of technology in our various sectors, definitely we are one of the front runners in that as well. And these are two sectors which might be on a slow mode right now, but once we are out of the crisis, definitely these are two sectors that's going to raise its head with their headlights on. So that's my 2 cents on economic revival.
Right. Thank you so much for taking this question, actually, Divya. So 2 more questions. One is from Daniel from Maharashtra. Very interesting question. He talks about, essentially the inclusion and exclusion errors, given that there's a lot of welfare which is being delivered by the state. And then audit becomes very important. And given that, this is a time of social distancing, how do we go ahead with social audits, especially under MGNREGA? How will you sort of work around the social distancing and still keep social audits going?
Thanks, Daniel. Well, more than social audit, I would think just ensuring that the work is being implemented itself is a big task. At least that's what we thought in the beginning. So as I said, the first time when I went out to the field with the Break the Chain campaign, my team went out. what we saw was that traditionally when beneficiaries under the scheme come together for work, it's it's obviously very unlike our office settings that we are used to. They come as a group, they go back as a group. When they work together, they chit chat in between. They share the food that they bring from their homes. They share stories. There is a lot of community building that takes place there. There is a lot of sharing that takes place there at their workplace. So it was initially very difficult to, implement and to ensure that there are certain rules, there are certain norms that they need to follow right now. Um, but also ensure that the camaraderie doesn't really wean off by any chance. And even including things like sharing of tools, we had to give advisories stating that the tools should not be shared, um, the work tools, I mean, and when they stand at the workplace, the social distancing has to be maintained. And we have a rule that not more than 5 people can work as a team, and even within the team, there is a social distancing that takes place. So there is an intra-team and an inter-team social distancing that takes place at the work site, and to ensure that the protective gear, the masks and the gloves and the boots are worn by everybody. So, a whole lot of uh, things which were new to people, which doesn't naturally come to them. When they see each other, they touch each other, they hug each other, they share their warmth with each other. So we had to, tell people to find alternative methods of sharing their warmth with each other. So even if you are at a distance, you can still share that good word with each other and still make the other person feel equally special and cherished as a friend or as a colleague at the work site. So, these were things which these behavioral changes are in fact the most difficult to bring across in any community, in any scenario. Whether it be in a public health scene, whether it be in a workplace, whether it be in an educational institution, wherever it is the behavioral changes that actually take the maximum amount of time. And that is what requires a lot of retelling and a lot of means to actually convey to people that this is essential. And I think what we did in Kerala was to ensure that now I'm not veering away from the question of social audit, but I think the answer to both social audit as well as the worksite social distancing remains the same. That's why I'm trying to explain what I've seen in person. So in Kerala, what we have actually done is that we have not imposed social distancing or safety protocols during the COVID era with an iron hand. Instead, this was actually sort of made into a celebration of camaraderie, into a celebration of empathy, into a celebration of good health for all of us together. So there were trolls and there were memes and there were videos on TikToks and there were street plays and there were dramas. There was all kinds of things to communicate in our IEC activities, to communicate to people that this social distancing and following of safety protocols during COVID era is extremely crucial to us protecting ourselves as a state, as a people together. So I can give you examples of, people would generally expect the police forces to impose these laws and, all these rules with an iron hand. But even the police forces in Kerala, they have released dance videos, they have released dramas and short video clips to ensure that people follow hand washing practices, people follow social distancing, etc. So right from a form of Kathakali actually inducting you into hand washing, to policemen dancing to hand washing tunes, to people in the field are Manrega beneficiaries being the carriers of hand washing technique, knowledge and skills. A whole host of activities were actually spun around the Break the Chain campaign that we did. And I think that is the reason, and that is the way in which social audit is also about to happen. So in all activities which are spread across the state, I think safety protocols as well as social distancing norms are being made out to be a celebration of good health.
Right. So there are a couple of more questions, but I'll take the last one. The more personal. Neha actually talks about how do you keep your motivation given there are so many challenges coming in every day. And what I'll do is I'll take the other questions and possibly pass it on to you later, and maybe you can answer them. But this question, I mean, how do you ensure that you keep your motivation?
Thanks, Neha. So, well, I think motivation is the key to everything in life. And how do I maintain it? Well, I really haven't sat down and thought on that. But off the head, I can tell you two things. Definitely one, I am a person who feels deeply for everything and for everybody. It might come in as a positive or a negative trait, depending on which situation I'm put in. But definitely I am extremely sensitive to everybody around me, to to what nature presents me with, and to what people around me are going through. And it's the energy that people pass on to me that keeps me going every day. And it's the energy that I derive from nature that keeps me going every day. And I have my little 1-year-old son at home who probably passes on the most amount of energy to me. Though I spend longer hours at work these days, the very fact that I go back to him and he jumps onto me, I think is the greatest motivation in the world to do good work. But apart from that, on a personal level, I think it's people. It's people who keep me going, and it's the stories that they tell me that keep me going. And it's it's their experiences, it's their sharing that keeps me going, and remains the biggest motivator to me till date. And they were the ones who kept me going as a doctor. I've always said, my patients have been my biggest gurus, have been my biggest teachers. They taught me everything about life. They taught me about pain. They taught me about grief. They taught me about birth. They taught me about death. Whole what the entire human existence is all about was taught to me by my patients, and I still cherish that so much. And it's that connect with a human being that I can derive in doing my little bit in this large scheme of things. It's that which gives me the energy, and it's that which fuels me to do work tomorrow and day after, and as long as I can.
Right. Thank you so much, Divya. Thank you for sharing that and sharing your thoughts and your insights. That's clearly will help us going as well. That's inspiring. Anyone, I mean, who wants to know more about Divya, there's a wonderful TED talk called How to Do It All. It's a TEDx talk. Do watch it. But for now, I mean, thank you so much, the audience, for taking time out and listening to Divya. And Divya, thank you so much for taking out from your busy schedule and sharing the insights. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mayur. It was wonderful interacting with all of you. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for this wonderful forum. More power to all of you. Keep doing the great work that you're doing, and together we definitely can make this world a better place, even under the corona scare. So, thanks so much, and stay healthy and stay safe, everyone.
Thanks, Divya. It was a pleasure. Thank you, everyone. Thanks. Thank you.